What's up everyone, Manny of the Game and Manny channel here, and welcome to another video. So, it's finally time to rank all 96 courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And since the new Mario Kart World is about to be released, I think it's perfect time to do my ranking of all the tracks. I know I'm late to the party, but anyways, this will be based on my opinions with these tracks, as well as how much I enjoy these tracks in the game. And just to let you know, I have plenty of hot takes. So if your favorite or your least favorite track is not on the placement you want it to be in, please don't take it too seriously. This is my opinion and you have your own. And this is going to be a good 96 ranking video, unlike that creepy dorks video. Seriously, why is he back after being exposed in 2021? I'm sorry, I just don't like him. So anyways, let's get started. We're gonna start the rank with an F tier. Consists of tracks that I find it to be the worst in this game. Start at number 96, 3DS Toad Circuit. Wow, how original. I know. Not surprised to see this track at the very bottom of the ranking. It's such a boring track they included, especially for the first wave of the boosted course pass. They could have picked a better track from Mario Kart 7's like Shy Guy Bazaar, since that track was originally going to be in the original Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, but was scrapped. But no, they went with the first track of Mario Kart 7. And the visuals on this track looks god awful. Like, look at this grass. It looks like someone uses a paint tool on it and call it a day. But the only good thing about this track is the music itself. This is a track that I barely played compared to the other tracks in the DLC. And I'm glad that it's not coming to Mario Kart World. I hope I don't jinx it. And I'm also glad that Shy Guy Bazaar is returning in Mario Kart World. 95. SNES Mario Circuit 3. The track itself is pretty underwhelming and flat. It offers nothing except that one shortcut. And this is a track that Nintendo loves to bring back, since we see this track in Super Circuit, Wii, Tour, and now the upcoming Mario Kart World. Although to be fair, it does look good in that game. But still, what is up with Nintendo's obsession with this track? And that's all I have to say. I would imagine if some loser plays this track at the top 10 in their ranking and oh. Makes sense for him. 94. GBA Sunset Wilds. How in the world did Nintendo ruin my favorite track from Super Circuit in this game? And we all know what's wrong with this one. In the original version, the sun sets each lap until it becomes fully night. It's a really cool gimmick to see implemented in the GBA game. This was also brought over in Mario Kart Tour, and it looks fantastic to see the sky change. As for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Nintendo decided to give the Super Circuit fans a middle finger by removing the gimmick. Hell, Nintendo didn't even bother to fix this issue after Wave 6 launch, so why bother bringing this track back instead? It's like Blue Lake in Super Circuit but without the actual lake despite the name of the track, and that one's also a GBA track, as well as in the DLC. And the fact that I placed this track lower considering it's my favorite track in Super Circuit really hurts me. Like I said in the previous video, this track would be perfect for Mario Kart World, since that game has a day and night cycle. And to those of you that don't care about the removal, do me a solid favor, go play this track in Super Circuit and experience the true Sunset Wilds. Number 93. Wii Coconut Mall. No wait, don't click off the video, let me explain. I like Coconut Mall, even though it's not my favorite track, but it is the best and beloved track in Mario Kart Wii. And yeah, it can be overrated sometimes. But the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version of Coconut Mall? What the hell happened to this track? The appearance of the track looks so unappealing. The escalators are easy to tell, which I would prefer the Wii version, which is hard to tell given the challenge to the track. And I'm not a huge fan of the cars making a donut. Speaking of which, the cars don't even actually move back when Wave 1 was launched, but was addressed in Wave 2's launch. While it's cool that they did that, it really doesn't work for my taste. And the new remix of this track isn't even that good either. I would just play the original Wii version of Coconut Mall, since it feels more alive than this one and the tour version. Number 92. Bone Dry Dunes. our final track for the F tier. And yeah, this track is so bland and boring. Despite the great visuals that the base game has, this one I'm not a fan of, and it looks too dead to look at. As for the track itself, it has tons of split paths to take, and the turns freaking sucks. And then you got bone piranha plants and dry bones to avoid. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The only positive thing I can give this track is the music. The music is alright, but overall, this track is not that great and too ugly to look at with the visuals. So yeah, those are all my F tier tracks. So let's move on to the D tier tracks. Consists of tracks I personally don't like. Number 91, Wii Wario's Gold Mine. It's not really that good. I admired this track back in its original game. It is a bit challenging to race on in Mario Kart Wii, but you got some elements such as the half pipes, the minecarts that needed to be avoided, and the music changes to techno style when you enter the cave. But for Mario Kart 8 standards, it seems the track lost its charm, such as the removal of the half pipes, even though this track came out 8 years before Maple Treeway and Merry Mountain. The minecarts doesn't hurt you, and they act as spin boost panels, and the music doesn't even change. So this is pretty much a downgrade. Number 90, Tour Tokyo Blur. The first Tour City track on this ranking video. The weakest city track in the DLC, as well as all of the city tracks. The track itself is pretty short. While it's cool that you can race through the track and see different landmarks, like the Rainbow Bridge, as well as going under the Kaminarimon, and going around the Tokyo Big Sight. Overall, this track has nothing to offer, and I wish Nintendo could do more with this track. Now of course, this is one of the earlier city tracks that were introduced in Tour, and the only positive thing I can give this track is the music. Sounded way better than Mario Kart Tour, but in the end, this track ain't for me. Number 89, Tour Paris Promenade, the first city track in the DLC as a whole. The Wave 1 city tracks are pretty weak in my opinion, but Paris Promenade does a better job than Tokyo Blur with the routing, especially in the final lap where you go reverse. But the visuals on this track doesn't look that great, and the track itself is a little bit bland and boring. The music is whatever. I don't think there's not much to talk about this. You just drive down through roads, as well as gliding through different landmarks. Not much this track has to offer. This track is not my cup of tea. Number 88, Tour New York Minute. Mario Kart Tour's first city track. Despite being the first ever city track to be introduced in Mario Kart Tour, the track itself is pretty bland in Mario Kart 8. But I'll give this track some points with the Donkey Kong references, and there's not much else to say about this track. Like I said, it's pretty bland. There's barely any hazards, as well as the tracks being slippery. And guys, I promise you, I don't hate the city tracks. It's just some of them are just boring in my opinion. Also, before we move on to the next placement, where's Spider-Man at? Number 87, 3DS Rock Mountain, or if you live in the PAL regions, Alpine Pass. When it comes to the Wave 3 tracks, this hits the bottom in the visual quality. It looks ugly and looks like it came straight out of the first wave. Looking at you, 3DS Toad Circuit. As for the track itself, just like in its original game, it does a pretty good job with the use of the gliding mechanic, as well as giving it anti-gravity. That makes sense. However, the visuals and the strange lighting inside the tunnel that I forget to mention is what brings this track low, and I did not like it. And especially with those orangey rocky textures that replaced the gray textures from the original, which I am not a huge fan of those specific color changes and lazy texturing. Number 86, Tour Bangkok Rush. Oh, Bangkok Rush, what happened to you? The track looks so beautiful, with a variety of tricking off ramps and bouncing off the tuk-tuks, having a unique hazards with the inclusion of the inky piranha plants underneath the BTS Skytrain, and making contact with it will cause the player to spin out and have ink cover the screen, similar to the blooper item, and of course the glorious sunset. So what does this track look like in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? Alright, first off, the positives. The routing in this version is quite impressive, and the newly improved music, although the original version wasn't so bad as well. Seeing laps 2 and 3 combine different variants of the track at the beginning of these laps, really interesting idea. But unfortunately, the elements I mentioned before are gone in this remake. The tuk-tuks are gone, the Okey piranha plants are being replaced by regular piranha plants, which have no purpose to be there. And don't get me started with the skybox. Seriously, the foggy sunset skybox doesn't go together. Overall, Nintendo did this city track dirty. I honestly wouldn't mind placing it up higher if they kept the hazards, as well as keeping the beautiful skybox from the original. So Bangkok Rush is my number 86. But there are other city tracks that are worth racing and better to look at. Number 85, N64 Toad's Turnpike. This loses the charm that the original had. I didn't care for Toad's Turnpike in Mario Kart 64, but I gotta appreciate the challenge that the original has, with trucks and cars to avoid, and being long. As for its remake, the track is shortened and feels wider. The vehicles are much easier to avoid. There's an anti-gravity section on the walls, which honestly is kinda pointless in my opinion. And there is one car that features a glide ramp. That's cool. Overall, this is just an underwhelming remake of an N64 track. Number 84, Tour London Loop. Despite my time with Mario Kart Tour, London Loop is probably the most forgettable city track in both Mario Kart Tour and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. As a Tour player myself, we don't see this track that much, and that caused my experience with this track in the DLC, as the track itself is complicated to navigate through. Like seriously, look at the minimap. The track itself is pretty bland and again, forgettable. But I could give this track some pointers. Change jump as hazard, especially in the final lap where they broke free. It has a better skybox with its foggy atmosphere, unlike Bangkok Rush. And the music is a better improvement than the tour version. But that doesn't mean that this track itself is good, where you just spend most of the time driving on a road. So this track is not that great. Number 83, Sky High Sunday. The track itself was heavily designed for Mario Kart Tour, but Nintendo decided to release it for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe first, so for Tour players like myself and others, this feels like we got an early access to the track before its inclusion in Mario Kart Tour a few days later. And I was pretty disappointed with the track layout, as it's literally an oval. This track feels like a combination between Baby Park and Excitebike Arena. The track itself is entirely anti-gravity, which is the first track in the DLC to feature the mechanic, but honestly, it doesn't need to be entirely anti-gravity, as it makes the track feels floaty-er, as well as having some weird camera angles in some part of the track. But I'm going to be honest, the tour version of this track is way better than 8 Deluxe, and I'm not that surprised that this track came back in Mario Kart World, but looking at the gameplay for that game, it plays slightly better than 8 Deluxe. Not much else to say about this track. Number 82, DS Waluigi Pinball, the final track of the D tier. And yeah, I'm just gonna straight up say it. It's overrated. It will never be a good track in my book. End of story. This is my opinion, and I'm not surprised that this track got a minigame in Super Mario Party Jamboree, and it's not great. That's all. And now with the D tier tracks out of the way, it's time to move on to the C tier. Consists of tracks that I find meh. They're not terrible, and they're not great at the same time. They're just whatever. Starting off the C tier, we have number 81, Rainbow Road. More specifically, Mario Kart 8's Rainbow Road. It had a lot of mixed reception, as you mostly race on a space station, and I can see why that is. Sure, the road does have rainbows on them, but still, although it may not be the best Rainbow Road track, the concept of a space station theme is really cool in my opinion, and I'm kinda really interested in DK Spaceport in Mario Kart World, since that track feels like a space themed. But to be fair, this doesn't feel like a Rainbow Road track. Number 80, DS Shroom Ridge. A better traffic track than Toad's Turnpike, but the track itself is just meh for the most part. Sure, there are cars and trucks throughout the entire track, as well as you got some additional shortcuts on the meadows, but the track is a little bit bland, but not in a terrible way. Like I said, it's way better than Toad's Turnpike, and there is a traffic track I like that is even better than both Shroom Ridge and Toad's Turnpike. Number 79, GCN Baby Park. Honestly, I never liked Baby Park a few years ago, but my hatred for this track started to die out. And this track nowadays, to me, it's not great, it's not terrible, it's just whatever. I'm well aware that this track is known to be chaotic in Double Dash, and it does get the job done. But in Mario Kart 8, barely. Unless you have custom items on. And does this track really need an anti-gravity? Sure, the track itself is tilted, but still. Aside from that, it would be nice to race outside of the track and explore. Tour kinda did something like that in the trick variant of Baby Park. Nintendo, if we ever get this track in Mario Kart World through DLC, this track would be perfect, especially for free roam. Number 78, 3DS Neo Bowser City, or if you live in PAL regions, Koopa City. I always keep forgetting that this track is in this game. As you can tell, this 3DS track is forgettable in this game in my opinion. It may be forgettable for me, but not forgettable for everyone else. But the track isn't that bad. It has a nice rainy aesthetic, something we don't see a lot in the series. The track has nice visuals, especially the background. However, there's not much to say about this track. You just race on the road, sure you enter tunnels as well as some shortcuts here and there. The track isn't even that challenging at all. Okay, unless you're playing 200cc. While it's not that bad, I wish they'd do more with this track. Number 77, GCN Dry Dry Desert. I'm pretty mixed about this remake. While I never grew up with Mario Kart Double Dash, because I never owned a GameCube in my life, and Nintendo doesn't want to give us GCN. Oh wait, I forgot. LOL. But I finally got my hands on the game this January. I did have a bit of a good time with this track when I first played it back in the Wii U. But after playing the original version, the remake lacks the charm that the original had. The original had a giant piranha plant in the middle of a quicksand, which is not Petey, and a tornado. As for the remake has an oasis, even though this track is supposed to be dry desert. But then again, Paper Mario 64 does that too. Is this a Paper Mario track? Overall, it's just a bland desert track, but it's way better than Bone Dry Dunes and Sunset Wilds in this game. And I honestly would put this in B if they kept the hazards I've mentioned, but still, the music is meh, although I do prefer the original music. But there is one desert track that stands out from all the other desert tracks in this game. Number 76, Water Park. Very creative name right there, Nintendo. While the aesthetics looks good with the Ferris wheels, as well as some other features like the submarine and the Mecha Cheeps, but it doesn't stand out with the other water themed tracks, which I kinda wish Nintendo should do more with this track, like racing down on a water slide, with some split paths and hazards, which will be nice. Also, the music is pretty bland. This course isn't terrible, it just needs more spice. Number 75, DS Wario Stadium. It has a really nice aesthetics with the track taking place in the daytime rather than being at nighttime in the original DS version, as well as featuring an underwater section at the end and that giant Wario statue. This is way better than the N64 counterpart. However, the anti-gravity section does kinda make this track a tiny bit unrecognizable, and it's not a bad thing, but I do admire the additions. 74, GBA Sky Garden. While the track layout is alright in my opinion, and this sounds like an unpopular opinion, but I am fully aware that most of the Mario Kart community would put this track very low because of the layout and prefer the original layout, and I don't blame them. I like the original layout too. Aside from the layout, the track itself is fine, but I mentioned this in the past that I prefer the Mario Kart Tour version of Sky Garden. And I can also say the same thing with the previous two mentions, with its road texture having a nice gray and green color mix to it. And I'm not a fan of this version of Sky Garden in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I don't hate this track, but I kinda wish this version having the same charm as the previous versions. 73, Excite Bike Arena. our first crossover track in the rankings. A track that is based on the NES game of the same name. Compared to the other oval tracks, this one's the best. And I never thought of Nintendo creating a track that is entirely based on the NES game, as it really captures the feeling of the original Excitebike game. What's also unique about this track is that the track changes each time you boot up the track with 200 different variants. While the track is simple and you mostly do tons of tricks, it's an okay track that I wouldn't mind racing on. Number 72, Mario Kart Stadium, the final track of the C tier, the very first track out of all 96 tracks. While the track itself is very simple, because you know, it's a beginner's track. However, it does a good job on the introduction of the anti-gravity mechanic. However, there is another track that does a better job than this one. It's an okay track, but it needs obstacles like a bit of hazards. And that concludes the C tier. And now we move on to the B tier, where the tracks themselves that are somewhat decent and are good tracks. Wow, I'm already at 21 minutes of this video, and I already reached the B tier. That's crazy. Number 71, Rainbow Road, more specifically from F-Zero X. Okay, yeah, I know this one's from Mario Kart 64. I just want to say it because this track was also in F-Zero X for the Nintendo 64. But anyways, it's a really interesting track in Mario Kart 64, where the track takes like 5 or 6 minutes to finish. Now of course, the original barely has any hazards, and you're just racing down the road with some chain chomps. But this track can also take less than 5 minutes if you try to do the ultra shortcut. But here in the Wii U and 8 Deluxe version on the other hand, the track is just one lap, which I can totally understand why Nintendo does this. But aside from the laps, the track itself looks visually pleasing and fun to race on. You got the bouncing chain chomps, as well as a flying train throughout the track, and it's also cool seeing this track taking place above the city, which kinda gives you GZN Rainbow Road vibes, as well as seeing the fireworks of characters. It makes the track feel alive, and the music feels magical in a way. Pretty good track, but to be fair, I kinda wish this track can have 2 laps. Number 70, GBA Cheeseland. Some people love it, some people hate it. For me personally, it's decent. The aesthetics are nice, plenty of shortcuts to take. Chain chomps makes the difficulty of this track challenging, as well as tricking off the holes. I hardly recognize this track due to its elevations that Nintendo gives this track. Oh, and the music on this remake slaps with the jazz instruments. Funny number, Amsterdam Drift. Amsterdam Drift is probably the better ones from the previous city tracks in this ranking, as you mostly race outside of the city. Lap 1 you race through a grass area with windmills. Lap 2 takes place in the city, but technically you're mostly racing in underwater, instead of racing through roads, for the most part of lap 2. And lap 3 you race through the tulip fields. It really stands out more than the other previous city tracks. Number 68, GBA Mario Circuit, an underrated Mario Circuit track. I like how the track opens up as a large U-turn being held by an Ultra Hands, a toy that was manufactured by Nintendo in 1960. It's cool to see Nintendo adding references to their old products before making video games. And it's also cool to see the entire track in this section. While the track itself is pretty simple, I find this track really enjoyable. Number 67, Wii Moo Moo Meadows, a fun track back in Mario Kart Wii. As for this one, it still has the same charm as the original. You got the Moo Moos on the track, so you can run them over and kill every last one of them. Or don't, I mean come on, look at that smile. I like the additional glide ramp, which I always use when racing on this track, as well as tricking off the Monty Mole spots. This track is way better than Moo Moo Farm from Mario Kart 64, and I can't believe that this track is coming back in Mario Kart World again. There's no escape from this track. Number 66, SNES Donut Plains 3. For being an SNES track, this isn't that bad. It plays way better than the original SNES version, especially with the second bridge, where you're forced to jump by pressing R so you won't fall. But this is no longer the case here, thanks to the underwater feature that was added, where you can make tons of shortcuts. Aside from that, I'm not a fan of the mud section, as it's very slippery, but that doesn't make this track terrible. This track is really good. Also, quick side note, I discovered these 3 hidden coins on this particular underwater area before the mud section while replaying this track for this video. Number 65, DS Cheep Cheep Beach. This feels forgettable in this game, even on DS. It's a really good beach track alongside N64 Koopa Troopa Beach and Peach Beach. No one cares about you. I like how it opens up with a glide section, which is a nice change, but when it comes to racing on this course, I mostly like racing on the underwater section in the middle of the track since you can skip a lot of the road, as well as seeing hidden ramps. And this track does a good job with the usage of the side steppers obstacles, and let's not forget about the forest section. Overall, pretty good. Number Nintendo 64, Wii Koopa Cape. A banger track in Mario Kart Wii, however this remake feels a bit downgraded. The rock textures are orange, which I mostly prefer the original, as well as in Mario Kart 7. And this is the 3rd game in a row to leave out the Koopa Zappers from the original Wii version. But despite all that, it's still a good track though, like in Mario Kart Wii. I would put this track in A tier, if this track was given justice. Number 63, 3DS DK Jungle, a track based on Donkey Kong Country Returns. And I never played that game, because I'm more into the original SNES trilogy. DKC2 is the best one. As for the track itself, it plays the same as the 3DS, but with the additional anti-gravity section inside the temple. It has a really good obstacles with the tiki enemies, the frogs, and my favorite, those screaming pillars. And it really has a good shortcut that features a glide ramp to use. And the rendition of Jungle Hijinks, it's really good, even though it sounded the exact same as in Mario Kart 7, with some minor changes. So overall, this track is decent, but there are other DK tracks on this ranking that I really like more than this one. Number 62, GBA Riverside Park. This is one of those GBA tracks I never thought of being added to the DLC from Tour. The track itself is really fun, with its turns, the mud shortcuts, and the cave section at the end, as well as hopping off the waterfall. I also like the inclusions of the patooey plants. Seeing them walking through the track while holding items is pretty funny, even though I have custom items on. And let's not forget that this track has the best looking visuals I ever seen from the boosted course path, with the grass, the rocks, and the realistic skybox. A really good GBA remake, even if the track itself is pretty short. But I do have a fun time with this track. Number 61, Tour Merry Mountain. Mario Kart Tour's first ever non-city nitro. I'm not counting the RMX tracks. A track that is based entirely on Christmas. When racing on this track for the first time in the DLC when Wave 3 came out, it gave me some nostalgia for the 2020 Winter Tour in Mario Kart Tour. But nowadays, it gives me some nostalgia of the 2022 Holiday Tour, which that one's way better than 2020. I never played 2021. But anyways, I love the aesthetics and assets throughout the track. A flying train, a Christmas village at the beginning, a giant structure that is made out of the presents, as well as taking place at night. Very fitting. As well as having the track having an anti-gravity section that does make a lot of sense, although this track feels basic, especially at the end. But overall, it's still a really good track though. Kinda wish they put hazards throughout the course. Number 60, DS Mario Circuit, and for my good friend Sean Ray, Sean Circuit. I remember being disappointed when this was confirmed for Wave 4, given the fact that not just being another Mario Circuit, but for being the last DS track to be added in the DLC. But however, a few months have passed since then, it has started to grow on me. It's a really decent circuit track. I like the forest area with the giant wiggler, as well as having some nice turns, and the music is pretty good. It may not be the best choice to be added to the DLC, I'll let this track slide. Number 59, Thwomp Ruins. Out of all the enemies in the Mario universe, a Thwomp gets their own track. This is such an underrated track in this game, the track offers a giant rolling stones to open up a glide ramp, which is a nice touch, as well as a nice use of anti-gravities on the wall. Better than Toad's Turnpike, even though it plays like the same, but it's much better. And looking at the aesthetics of this track, it reminds me of Thwomp Volcano from Mario Luigi Partners in Time, except you're in the ruins instead of being in the volcano. Speaking of which, 58 We Grumble Volcano still has the same charm as the original, seeing some parts of the track falling as the race progressed, seeing the volcanoes erupt as lava rocks falling towards the track to watch out for, as well as seeing the fire snakes. Although it sucks that you cannot do the ultra shortcut like in Mario Kart Wii, but still, it's Grumble Volcano we all know and love, or hate, depending what you think. Also, before I move on to the next track, I want to show you this funny clip of CPU Mario falling off over and over. Number 85, Super Bell Subway. What a clever concept of racing on the subway station. We start racing on the station, as well as racing down to the subway. Eat fresh. Okay, in all seriousness, it has many different paths you can take, as well as riding on the top of the train. What more can I say? Also, a nice touch to this track is the music changes, with an underground theme from the original Super Mario Bros. Seeing the graffiti that is loosely based on World 1-2. Overall, decent track to enjoy. Number 56, Mute City. Another crossover track in the game. This one's based on the F-Zero series. This captures the charm of the F-Zero games. The look of this track really reminds me of its appearance in F-Zero X and GX. I like how the fact that there are no coins throughout this track, which they are replaced with these pits on the side of the track, as well as having a track fully anti-gravity, which makes a lot of sense if you played F-Zero X or F-Zero GX. It's a fun track to race on. As a matter of fact, I played a lot of F-Zero throughout last year, with tons of the F-Zero games on the NSO, stay away from maximum velocity, as well as spending tons of hours with F-Zero 99, and I'm looking forward to try out F-Zero GX on the Switch too. But anyways, fun track. Oh, and I forgot about the music. It's pretty good. Number 55, N64 Choco Mountain. A classic N64 truck that I enjoyed on Mario Kart DS. I like the foggy atmosphere like in London Loop, except you're not in London, you're in a mountain, which is not made of chocolate. Anyways, the cave section looks really nice with glowing crystals, and I like the glider section. Soaring to a section with those boulders, and the music rendition of this track is amazing with the harmonica. It's one of the two better tracks from the first wave in my opinion. And that's all I have to say about this one. It's just a good old Choco Mountain with some good makeover. I did not like what they did in Mario Kart World. Number 54, N64 Yoshi Valley. It has a really nice revamping. Aside from that, it has a really cool gimmick with the number of different routes, with 6 different routes you could take, as you can see here. My favorite route from the original N64 version is the 5th route, but in Mario Kart 8, I mostly use the 1st route since that one's the fastest. It's also nice to see the giant egg again and seeing other Yoshi eggs in the background. And I gotta ask, does anyone use this to canon? And I also gotta ask, what route do you take in both Mario Kart 64 and Mario Kart 8? Number 53, 3DS Music Park, aka Melody Motorways, if you live in PAL regions. First off, the European name sounded way better than the American name. And second, it's a pretty cool concept to have a track that has musical theme, racing through a piano, a marimba, and a vibraphone. And this course has my favorite glider section, soaring through the section with those big ass musical notes, jumping side to side. And I also like the tambourine shortcut at the end of the track, even though it can be janky sometimes. And finally, let's not forget about those piranha plants jamming with the music. Number 52. SNES Rainbow Road. When it comes to the SNES tracks in the original Super Mario Kart, Rainbow Road is probably the best one in my opinion. It's very challenging with no guardrails, as well as having the invisibility thwomps. As for Mario Kart 8, it plays the same as in Mario Kart 7, which that track also got remade in that game. You got the ramp, as well as thwomps causing the wave to trick off. The only difference is that in Mario Kart 7, you're in space, while in 8, you're at the top of the plains with a lake, which I assume that's Donut Plains 3. Overall, I still enjoy this track, and the music is alright. Not the best rendition of the SNES music, but it's alright. Also, I find it strange that this is the second track in the Triforce Cup, since usually Rainbow Road tracks are always the final track of a cup. Not the case for this one in this game. Pretty strange, not counting the cups in Mario Kart Tour. Number 51, N64 Royal Raceway. This looks so gorgeous. This track feels like you're racing through a wedding, especially when it comes to that long straightaway, with those grass arches with bells ringing. It also has a really nice glide section to soar over the lake, passing the hot air balloons. This feels alive than the original N64 version, although I do miss driving around Peach's Castle from Super Mario 64. It's a cool Easter egg in the original Mario Kart 64 game, but sadly, this was blocked off. Really good track, but I do wish we could still explore around Peach's Castle. Number 50. Wee Daisy Circuit, the final track of the B tier. This is such a romantic track. The beautiful sunset, the music, the statues of Luigi and Daisy. Despite the name of the track, this isn't even a circuit track in my opinion. But outside of that, I remember being a bit disappointed about this track's inclusion when it was announced back in September 2023 Nintendo Direct. Because you know, it's another Wii track, and we have way too many Wii tracks being added in the boosted course patch, which I don't want to bring this up. I already mentioned this in my Wave 6, go check that out. But overall, Daisy Circuit is a good track to end off the B tier. Alright, that's all my B tier tracks, and now we move on to the A tier tracks. Consists of tracks that I personally like, including some tracks that I like that everyone hates. Number 49, Mario Circuit. Out of all the Mario Circuit tracks in this game, this one is my favorite, as well in general. This may look like a figure 8 when you look at the minimap, but it's technically a Mobius strip. This course does a better job with the use of the anti-gravity mechanic than Mario Kart Stadium did. This is such a good track that it was even featured in the Super Smash Bros. Series, and I always love the music. It gives me some 2014 nostalgia, even though I never owned a Wii U during that year. So yeah, this is the best Mario Circuit in general, in my opinion. Number 48, GBA Snowland. Out of all of the GBA remakes in Mario Kart Tour, I never expect this track to be added, as the track itself plays way better than the original in terms of gameplay. In the original, for some reason the screen shakes throughout the entire race, as well as the track itself feels too slippery, but this has been resolved in this remake. The screen doesn't shake, and the slipperiness has been toned down. This track also has different shortcuts to take, but overall, a really solid remake of a GBA track. And I just realized I am halfway there to reach the end of this ranking. Number 47, Tour Vancouver Velocity. This was a fan favorite city track in the Mario Kart Tour community, with its layout, the autumn and winter aesthetics, and of course, the music. I like this track in both Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Mario Kart Tour, but however, the second and third lap are pretty weak, as they are pretty similar to each other. Lap 2 takes you to the Stanley Park, lap 3 takes you to the Massey Tunnel, and both of these laps end off with the Rogers Arena, with the same turns towards the finish line. It's still a really good city track, but I wish they could have done better with the laps. Oh, and the music is so phenomenal, and a banger alongside the original. Number 46, GCN Sherberland. This may sound like an unpopular opinion, but I like this track, even in Mario Kart Double Dash. It has a really nice nighttime aesthetics for a snow track, and I can say the same thing with Merry Mountain. I always love using the underwater section that was added at the beginning and the near end. I also like using the glider section at the end as well. Also there's skating Shy Guys, as well as some freezies. As you can see, this track still has the same charm as the original, with some additions. As for the music itself, I mostly prefer the original. 45. GBA Boo Lake. This track is a huge improvement of the original track. In the original game, this track is called Boo Lake, which is a total lie because you're mostly above the bottomless pit. But thankfully, it was finally addressed in Mario Kart Tour after 22 years by adding an actual lake. As for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this looks amazing in HD, with the boardwalks looking nice, the water texture, and the skybox. This is such a banger track coming from the third wave. Even though the track itself is short, I still enjoy the track no matter how short it is. And one more thing, I kinda wish they include the Luigi's Mansion in the background. Number 44. Tour Piranha Plant Cove. A Piranha Plant track that isn't pipe themed, but instead taking place in an underwater ruins. This track is unique because unlike the other non-city tour nitros, this has the lap changing mechanic like the city tracks up to this point. Racing through the ruins, enter a small island, and the crystal cavern with a sunken ship. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a fan of this track in Mario Kart Tour. The track itself, alongside the variants, is fine. It's just the underwater physics in Mario Kart Tour is pretty bad. And that's something I don't want to say because I already brought this up like a million times in the past. But here in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it plays way better than it was. Not much else to say about this track, let's move on. Number 43. Shy Guy Falls. I love the fact that you race on the waterfall with anti-gravity by going up and down, and seeing the dash ramps falling down with the waterfall, and it feels cool to glide off the water and take different paths. And this course has a really nice simple shortcut, and it really has a nice aesthetics at the beginning and the end with the mine section with Shy Guys with pickaxes, as well as singing along with the song. Overall, this is a fun track to race on. Number 42. Ice Ice Outpost. This is pretty much the most controversial as well as the most unpopular opinion, but this is a good track that I enjoyed. I could never understand why this track gets a lot of hate. The course has a pretty good layout as well as the theming that makes the track stand out. It has a good use with the green and yellow road and split into different paths, as well as the shortcuts. But the shortcuts, I have to admit, can be janky sometimes. And let's not forget how much of a banger of the song is. But in the end, it's a really fun course. But still, does this course really deserve the hate? Like, come on you guys, why hating on this track? Give this track another chance and wait. Oh, I think I figured out why this track gets so hated. Y'all have skill issues. Number 41. Tour Berlin Byways. I enjoy this track in Mario Kart Tour, but I also enjoyed it in this game as well. Compared to the other city tracks, this course features a traffic mechanic, just like what we see in Toast Turnpike and Shroom Ridge. This course laps matches the order of the appearance of Berlin Byways. The first lap is based on Berlin Byways 2, which is an interesting start because Berlin Byways 2 was the first variant to introduce in Mario Kart Tour before Berlin Byways 1 a year later. The second lap is based on Berlin Byways 3, which is where the traffic mechanic originated from in this track. And the final lap is based on Berlin Byways 1, which features Womps on the Berlin Wall. Overall, this remake has some good routing, unless you're familiar with Mario Kart Tour. I also like the new music remakes of this track, but I mostly prefer the original version. Number 40. GCN Daisy Cruiser. Still plays the same as in Mario Kart 7. It still has an underwater section, in the pool, and the basement with the Unagis and Clampies, as well as the track having a 2 split path at the beginning. It's still Daisy Cruiser that every Double Dash fan knows and loves, but with some makeover that we've seen since 7. Number 39. DS TikTok Clock. I want to tell you something. I hate TikTok Clock. So you're probably wondering, if I hate TikTok Clock, Then why isn't it on the A tier? Well, my dear viewer, that's because I'm not talking about this TikTok clock. I'm referring to the level that this track is based on, from Super Mario 64. It is literally, in my opinion, the worst level in any 3D Mario game, as well as the mainline Mario games in general. Same goes to Noki Bay and Sunshine, but as a course in Mario Kart DS and 8, it has a really good track layout, racing through a clock, as well as driving on the hands, as well as racing through the cogworks, and I'm a big fan of the ending. I never thought I'd be praising a track that is based on the level that I hate in Super Mario 64. If I ever want to play a good TikTok clock, I'll just boot up Mario Kart DS or Mario Kart 8 and never look at that god-awful level in Super Mario 64 ever again. Seriously, that level can go to hell. Same with Noki Bay. Number 38, Cloud Top Cruise. A great start for the Special Cup. This track feels like a combination between GBA Sky Garden with the Beanstalks and DS Airship Fortress with racing on the airship. What I'm trying to say is that this track is basically if Sky Garden and Airship Fortress had a baby. My favorite part when racing on this course is gliding to enter the thunderclouds with dash panels and lightning to avoid. And I also like gliding towards the platform that resembles a question block with the beanstalk road growing out of it. That's a nice touch. And let's not forget the nice arrangement of Gusty Gardens Galaxy, even though the soundtrack in Mario Galaxy is a bit overrated in my opinion. Don't hate me please. But it's still a really good arrangement. Overall, this track is really solid. Number 37, Wii Mushroom Gorge. A good old Wii classic. The gameplay of this track in this game is pretty much like how it was in Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 7. You got the returning shortcuts at the beginning, the blue glider mushroom from Mario Kart 7, and of course the infamous gap jump, which is difficult to pull off unless you're a Mario Kart god. This is still the Mushroom Gorge we all know and love. Although I do have to admit the mushroom section in the cave area is janky sometimes, even in the original, but still, it's still a fun and memorable track. Number 36, Toad Harbor. This is a second Toad related track that is a banger, with the other being Toad's Factory from Mario Kart Wii. I really like the multi-paths that we can take in this track, such as racing on top of the market tents, taking the shortcut, as well as racing on the wall. But my favorite part of this track is going downhill with the cable cars to avoid. This track is more enjoyable than Toad's Turnpike and Circuit. Number 35, Sweet Sweet Canyon. A very tasty looking track to race on. Donuts, candy, cakes, etc. As well as racing around the giant cake, as well as going through the soda ocean, while taking two different paths, as well as avoiding pink piranha plants at the end. Overall, pretty tasty course. Number 34, Wii DK Summit. A track that's pretty much a spiritual successor to DK Mountain. This track plays similar to that track, as they share the same concept, blasting off the cannon at the beginning, as well as having zigzag section in the middle of the track, as well as having similar layout. This track has a better use with the half pipes than Merry Mountain. Okay, can be janky sometimes, but still, is DK Summit a really nice banger track. Number 33, Tour Madrid Drive. The final city track of Mario Kart Tour and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. When I first played this track in the DLC, I didn't expect the first lap to be based on the third variant, which features a train station and a museum, and the second lap is based on the reverse variant of the second variant, as well as the final lap being based on the first variant, which features a soccer stadium. This is a really interesting routing choice for this final city track, although I do wish we could drive more inside of the museum and the stadium, but I'm also glad the music still changes throughout the race. But overall, pretty good track. Number 32, 3DS Rosalina's Ice World. I'm generally surprised that we ended up getting this track over Piranha Plant Pipeline, but hey, I'm not disappointed, because this track delivers. The aesthetics looks nice in HD, the amount of references to Rosalina's game of origin, such as the structure that resembles the Comet Observatory, the Gateway Galaxy in the background, and even the starship. And like I said in my Wave 6 video, the half pipe on this track are pretty janky, since you can easily drive off-road. In addition to this track, I do like the newly added shortcut at the end. This is a really good ice track. Not sure if that sounds like an unpopular opinion, because this track is pretty mixed within the Mario Kart community, but still. Number 31, Animal Crossing, a course that is heavily based on the series with the same name, mostly Animal Crossing New Leaf, a recent entry to the series at the time of Mario Kart 8's release. And is also the game where my favorite Animal Crossing character, as well as my Smash Ultimate main, Isabelle, originated from. But anyways, I love the amount of cameos and references to their home series. Hitting the trees causing the fruits to fall, as the fruit acted like mushrooms, the coins being replaced with bells, balloons holding items, and of course, instead of the usual Toads, Yoshi, and Shy Guys, this track features a variety of villagers. Even special villagers like Mr. Rossetti acting as a hazard, as well as other characters like Tom Nook, Blathers, and even KK Slider. But the main highlight of this track is that it has 4 different seasons. This is such a cool feature that Nintendo didn't have to do. But anyways, racing on this track really made me miss playing Animal Crossing New Leaf, which I honestly kinda prefer over New Horizons. I'm not dissing New Horizons though. I enjoy that game as well. It's because my nostalgia bias is kicking in. Number 30, DS Peach Gardens. To be honest, the original and the Wii remake feels a bit empty, but here in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this feels alive. The maze look amazing, no pun intended, featuring the topiary statues of Luigi, Peach, Toad, and Toadette. The visuals on this course looks good, especially with the trees, bushes, and hedges. And I didn't expect the final lap to have the Paris Promenade treatment by having you race in reverse in the final lap. Pretty odd choice, but you know what, I don't mind. Number 29, GCN Waluigi Stadium. A better Waluigi track than Pinball. It definitely deserves more praise than that overrated track. Anyways, I always enjoyed this track growing up with Mario Kart Wii, and it's one of the 2 GCN tracks I enjoyed in Wii. But here in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this track looks amazing. Like seriously, look at the visuals. It has the same level as the base game tracks. It still plays like in Mario Kart Wii, with the half pipes, as well as featuring new additional platforms that require the use of the half pipes. I like this track, even in Mario Kart Wii. And yes, I also like it in Mario Kart Double Dash as well. Even though the track itself in the original Double Dash game is a little bit tough, but that what makes this track so fun, and is still more enjoyable in this game as well. Number 28, 3DS Piranha Plant Slide. This track gives out the classic vibes to the original Super Mario Bros. For the NES. Having the race starts by entering the pipe just like in the game, as well as the underground section featuring piranha plants and some Goombas to avoid while racing through the flowing water, as well as racing through the underwater section. This feels like racing on World 1-2, and it's pretty cool. Although I do miss the blue aesthetics on the underground section from the original game. Heck, it even returned in Mario Kart Tour. But overall, this track is a blast. Number 27, GCN Yoshi Circuit, the first track of the original Wii U DLC. This is a very unique circuit track from Mario Kart Double Dash, as the track layout is in the shape of a birdo. Oh crap, I messed up. It's Yoshi. Whoops, but anyways, this is by far the best remake of a Yoshi circuit track, with the shoe section becoming a town at the beginning, as well as featuring a waterfall to jump through from the arm shortcut. This is a better remake than Mario Kart DS version, since that one feels empty. But here in Mario Kart 8, I'm glad what we got in this remake. It's a fantastic remake. Number 26, Tour Los Angeles Laps. Unlike the rest of the city tracks, where you go through the same finish line 2 or 3 times in a single race, LA Lap is the only city track to be a 1-lap track, as all 3 finish lines are located in different areas. Lap 1 is based on LA Laps 1, Lap 2 is based on LA Laps 3, which features the Los Angeles Convention Center, which I've been to for Anime Expo last year. as well as the third lap is based on the second variant of LA laps, with an oil field for some reason. It's interesting how this course was implemented into a one lap track, and I like it. Also, the music is fine. I mostly prefer the original tour version because of the vocals. Number 25, GCN DK Mountain. I enjoyed the hell out of this track alongside Waluigi Stadium and Mario Kart Wii. Like with Waluigi Stadium, it plays just like in its Wii counterpart. One thing in mind are the half pipes, and it's awesome to do the iconic shortcut at the near end of the course, as well as seeing the angry volcano looking more menacing than before. This course is a certified classic. Number 24, GBA Ribbon Road. I used to hate this track many years ago, before I started making YouTube videos for this channel. Mainly I have skill issues, but at least my opinions have changed year after year, and this track has grown on me. This is a really well done remake of an underrated track from Mario Kart Super Circuit. I'm guessing this is a big house that Nathaniel Bandy has dreamed of. This course really gives the entire Mario Kart community a Toy Story vibe, featuring tons of toys in the background, as well as taking place in the child's room, as well as the road having different colors, with red, green, and blue. Anyways, this is a fun track, but... Number 23, Squeaky Clean Sprint. Ribbon Road's spiritual successor, but instead of a child's room, you race through a literal bathroom, driving through a sink, going inside a filled bathtub with toy Goombas and a rubber duckies floating above the water, as well as going down the drain and gliding over the toilet. And no, it's not whatever the hell this brain rot is. But anyways, this is such a creative track that Nintendo didn't even have to do, but they delivered. Number 22, Tour Athens Dash. Despite being a city track, this doesn't really feel like a city track at all. This is more of a historical theme, with tons of ruins, as well as taking place at Acropolis. It's a really interesting choice when making up the track, since most of the city tracks do feel the same. Which I do have to admit, look at all the city tracks I put in the D tier. So if you want to play a city track that isn't just passing buildings, as well as driving down the road, this city track is for you. Number 21, Tour Singapore Speedway. Compared to Vancouver Velocity, this is basically a fan favorite city track among the community, which is really surprising that a lot of the Tour city tracks aren't well received in the community. And I do understand why, but hey, that's just their own opinion, and we can all respect them. But anyways, this city track is really beautiful with the vibrant colors, the nighttime aesthetics, the music, and of course, the Chinatown. And interestingly, the track itself is somewhat near perfectly accurate to the real life counterpart, according to this video, which I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested. So yeah, Singapore Speedway, I honestly would put this track in S tier, but this track feels like an A tier track for me. Number 20, Dolphin Shoals. This is a really banger on the water track from the Star Cup. We jump in and out of the water with the dolphins, going down to the cave with pipes blowing currents as racing on the top of the Unagi as well as tricking on it, and a really nice spiral turn after leaving the cave. What a beautiful track to race on, and let's not forget that it has a really awesome soundtrack. Number 19, Hyrule Circuit, a track that's based on the Legend of Zelda series. This track is a love letter to all those who are fans of the series, racing through the world of Hyrule with Hyrule Field, Hyrule Castle, Hyrule Town, and a small forest, which I assume is supposed to be Lost Woods, or Kokiri Forest, or it's just some random forest. I also like the variety of references that were implemented for this track. The coins are replaced with rupees, the item roulette has a unique sound effect, the Master Sword makes an appearance, and the piranha plants and swoops are replaced with usual Zelda enemies, Deku Babas and Keys. This is an excellent track for any Zelda fans, even if you don't play any of the games. And also Nintendo, where the hell are the Majora's Mask references? Number 18, 3DS Rainbow Road. The iconic Rainbow Road from Mario Kart 7. This is one of the most popular Rainbow Road tracks out of all the Rainbow Roads out there. This track feels like an adventure through space, passing through different planets, racing through the rings of Saturn, and especially racing on the moon. This is a Rainbow Road that should never be forgotten. And I know a lot of people would place this track way higher on their rankings, which is pretty understandable. It is one of the most beloved Rainbow Roads to exist. Number 17, Mount Wario. I love how the track started off jumping out of the plane and start racing down the mountain with an icy terrain. I'm a huge fan of the shortcut at the end of the first lap. The second lap starts with a gliding section inside the cave, as well as racing through the dam, which is pretty damn cool. Okay, I'll just stop. As well as featuring a forest with trees to avoid. And the final lap is probably the best, by skiing down the mountain with some bumps to trick off, gliding through rings, and bada bing bada boom finito. I also love the fact that the music changes as we progress throughout the entire track until the end. And this is the best way to give this track some personality. And you know what else? This is the final track of the A tier, which means it's time for the final tier, the S tier. Consists of tracks that are my top 16. So, without wasting any time, let's begin the S tier. Number 16, Dragon Driftway. A very clever design track, giving it a Chinese theme. The highlight of this track is racing on the gigantic dragon statue that is based on Gobblegut from Super Mario Galaxy 2. Like with Wii U's Mario Circuit, it has a really nice uses with the anti-gravity mechanic, with its nice turns and the shortcuts, as well as admiring the details throughout the track. The Lakitu paintings on the wall, small buildings on the mountains, and the giant Lakitu statue in the background, and the banger of the music. Really amazing track. Number 15, Twisted Mansion. I'm a big fan of DS Luigi's Mansion from Mario Kart DS, and having a spiritual successor to that track is genius in my opinion. I like how the door opens up before the race begins, as well as picking a side in the main hall and the underwater section, which, not gonna lie, this underwater section does kinda remind me of my favorite level from Wario Land 4, Crescent Moon Village. But anyways, we also enter a small house at the end, as well as exiting out the house while avoiding the knight statues. This is such a wonderful track to race on. I know that some of the community will place this track low, but hey, you know what, who cares? This is my tier list, not yours. Number 14, Bowser's Castle. This is such a badass track to race on. This track design looks fantastic, and just like with Twisted Mansion, the gates open up before the race begins. You got some unique hazards like the Bowser statues, shooting lasers to avoid, the fire bars, a giant spike ball, and let's not forget what this track is known for, featuring a gigantic Bowser statue, which punches the road, forcing us to select a path for safety. And the glider section is very cool, flying past the lava geysers. This track really captures Bowser's personality. Number 13, SNES Bowser's Castle 3. The only retro Bowser's Castle of this entire game. For being an SNES track, this is a really well done remake, given the fact that it was ported from Mario Kart Tour, as every SNES track in Tour feels so flat and boring. But not the case for SNES Bowser's Castle 3. Nintendo really went all out with this track. The visuals on this track looks amazing, as it feels like it belongs to the base game, and the track layout design looks fantastic. And I'm really glad that Nintendo went with this track instead of one of those Vanilla Lake tracks. But anyways, a really well done remake. Number 12, Wild Woods. This track really has the best aesthetics and the music. Starting the race with an anti-gravity section on a tree, going through a wooden village with Shy Guys, racing along the water flow to the pond, and the pond is really good because of those leaves you can trick off, as well as going upwards back to the tree with a bridge at the end as a shortcut. I admire how the track looks, especially with the water section and the pond, and the music has some of the best jazz performances I ever hear. Bravo, Nintendo. Bravo. Number 11. Wii Maple Treeway. Honestly, I don't have that much to say. It's still Maple Treeway that we all know and love. The autumn theming, the cannon, the giant wigglers, the half pipes, and the music. Although, we all missed the bridge from the original. But even without it, this track is still a beloved classic. Alright, we have reached my top 10. So, for number 10, Tour Sydney Sprint. I enjoyed a lot with Sydney Sprint ever since Wave 2 was released. I thought it would be an okay city track, but Nintendo cranked up this track to 11. I adore the routing of this layout. The first lap is based on Sydney Sprint 1, the second lap combines both Sydney Sprint 3 and 2, as well as featuring some shortcuts, and the final lap is basically the first lap but reversed. Honestly, this used to be my favorite city track of all time in this game when it comes to the city tracks, but... Number 9. Tour Roma Avanti. The final city track of this ranking, and in my opinion, the winner of the best city track goes to Roma Avanti. I love this track in Mario Kart Tour, as well as in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The nighttime aesthetics, especially racing through the Coliseum in the first and final lap, as well as gliding over the Trevi Fountain and the gardens. I also admire the glorious music. My god, I don't care what people are going to say, just let me have my moment. Racing on this track really brings back many memories with the Night Tour back in 2023. It feels wonderful to race on this track at any time in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so I don't have to wait for a whole year to play this track in Mario Kart Tour. So overall, this is by far the best city track in this game. Number 8. Electrodrome, which I cannot believe that's how you pronounce it. I always pronounce this track as Electrodome for like 8 years after I first played Mario Kart 8, back in 2016. Anyways, the first and only track in the entire series to have a name with one word. It's a really unique concept of taking place in a nightclub with dancing Koopas and Shy Guys, as well as with those head-bopping piranha plants, and a pretty interesting layout, especially with the anti-gravity section in the middle of the track with the green and magenta colors, which kind of reminds me of the Squid Sisters from the Splatoon series. And I also like the part before using the glider, you can hear the woo after racing on the road that lights up. Man, why is the Star Cup in this game has such banger tracks? What even is this cup? Number 7. Wii Moonview Highway. I was shocked to see this track make the cut to the DLC, which is really unexpected. I enjoy this track in Mario Kart Wii, and the same can be said in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Still plays the same as in Mario Kart Wii, even though there are some changes like the cars and trucks don't squish you anymore, which I honestly kinda missed that back in Mario Kart Wii, cause I think it's pretty funny. But still, it would have been a funny inclusion in this game as well. And outside of that, the dash panel in the city area are randomized each time when you select this track. And it's also nice to see the Bob-omb cars make the cut after being cut from the base game. Plus, I'm also glad that this track has 2 different versions of the music, which I mostly prefer the city version of the song. Despite the flaws that this track has, like with the cars moving slow, as well as not having many, and the previously mentioned no longer getting squished by them, this is still the best 2 Wii tracks in this game in my opinion. Number 6. Yoshi's Island. A huge love letter to the SNES game. With the amount of sound effects, the coins are replaced with Yoshi coins, the cameos with the characters such as the Stilt Guys, Huffin' Puffin, the Chain Chomps in the background, and the gigantic Neppy Nut, and more importantly, baby! Nintendo, please make Poochie playable in Mario Kart World DLC. Back to the track. Let's not forget about this amazing rendition of the athletic theme from the original game. Another nice touch is with the flower ring at the end, which is a nice reference to the end of the level of Yoshi's Island. This track deserves to be on the list of fan favorites. Plus, I would love to see a spiritual successor to this track in the future. maybe a track based on Yoshi's story will be next. Number 5. Big Blue, the final track of the DLC from the original Wii U game, and the base game of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Another track that is based on F-Zero. Just like with Mount Wario, it's a section track divided into 3 laps that doesn't loop with its layout. Much like Mute City, the coins are replaced with the pits, as well as being entirely anti-gravity. This track also has one of the best shortcuts, especially when playing on 200cc. The track has a really beautiful aesthetic that Nintendo put a lot of effort into making the track. Looking at the background really reminds me of Big Blue's appearances in Super Smash Bros. Melee and onward. And the music is a nice combination with electric guitar and jazz, especially the final lap. And speaking of which, a nice touch with this track is that when reaching the final lap, you can hear, "Yeah, the final lap!" which came from F-Zero X. Pretty cool. That's all I have to say. It's pretty interesting that Nintendo still includes the F-Zero content in their games outside of the Super Smash Bros. Series, until 2023 with F-Zero 99, which that game got me into the F-Zero series. Number 4. Tour Ninja Hideaway, and my final Mario Kart Tour track for this ranking. For being a Wave 1 track in this game, this is by far the best coming out of the first wave. Really unique track design with a variety of paths you can take and the amount of sharp turns, which makes it difficult, and I love it. Unique hazards with the ninja stars on the ceiling, having Shy Guys transforming into banana peels, alongside the Shy Guys holding on to kites in the glider section, as well as this big shortcut at the end if you're a Mario Kart god. And this track has an amazing Japanese aesthetic. Heck, you can even see the mountain that resembles Mount Fuji in the background. I fell in love with this track back when it first came out in Mario Kart Tour, and playing this track really brings me back some good memories about the 2021 Ninja Tour. This is a track I played the most before my next track of this ranking, and anyone who places this track lower, what's wrong with you? Number 3. N64 Calamari Desert. Alright, my Mario Kart 64 bias is kicking in. I don't care what the whiners are going to say, this is my ranking, not yours. Let me cope. I have a huge love for Calamari Desert, back in the original Mario Kart 64 game, as it's my favorite track of the entire Mario Kart series as a whole. I love the track layout, the music, and the most famous hazard of this track, the train. And the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version of Calamari Desert is one of the best I've seen. I love the fact that this track combines with the original Calamari Desert that we all familiar with, and Calamari Desert 2 from Mario Kart Tour. The first lap based on the original, while the second and final lap are based on the second variant, with the use of the railroad. And let me just say, I love the fact that when going to the tunnel for the final lap, it is a really nice callback to the star shortcut from the original version, which every Mario Kart 64 speedrunners knows what I'm talking about. I'm so happy that this track got added, and it brought me tears of joy when it was confirmed, and this is the track I played the most. Although to any of you that disagree with this placement, do me a favor, go step on the Lego block. Anyways, even though this track is by far my most favorite in the entire series, why did I place this track third? Well, for number 2, Wii Rainbow Road, the final track of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And this is the best send-off to a 2014 game, and it delivers very well. I had an emotional feeling when I first played this track, considering the fact that it's the final track of the entire game, as well as the end of Mario Kart 8's content. I'm glad that this track plays in 3 laps in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, just like we do in the original Mario Kart Wii game, as well as having the track entirely anti-gravity, which is very fitting, as well as the return of the falling animation with a meteor effect. I don't have that much to say about this Rainbow Road. This is the best Rainbow Road, in my opinion. Sure, many people say 3DS Rainbow Road is also the best, but nothing can defeat Wii's incarnation of Rainbow Road. Okay, maybe Double Dashes can. And you're also probably wondering, what's my number 1 track? Sunshine Airport, baby! I'm going to be honest, I thought Big Blue was going to be my #1 pick, but I have a huge fond with Sunshine Airport. While Calamari Desert will still be my favorite track of the entire series, but Sunshine Airport is my #1 of Mario Kart 8 as a whole. We start on the inside of the terminal, jumping over conveyor belts with crates, which reminds me a bit of Toad's Factory, going through the planes. But my favorite part of this track is the glider section, in which we glide upwards while the plane flies over us, which feels wonderful, as well as landing on the helicopter pad. This is such an amazing track that I don't have any issues with, and I even love listening to the music, especially when I'm in airports. And that, my friends, is why Sunshine Airport is my #1 track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And with that, my friends, that concludes my 96 track rankings for this video. This is such a long video I ever made for this channel, and I have so many wild takes I have. But like I said in the intro, these are just my opinions, but you don't have to agree with any of them. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, why not give it a like, as well as leaving a comment what you think. And if you're new to the channel, why not hit that subscribe button for more content in the future. With that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video. Goodbye, take care, peace.